Hey, what is going on, guys? It's DK. Back at you with another video here to break down the 3-game Call of Duty main slate on Friday. Before I get into the video, if you guys are new to the channel, my name's DK. I make daily videos breaking down NBA, NFL, PGA, and esports daily fantasy sports slates, esports, including CSGO, League of Legends, and this one, Call of Duty. Also, just want to say thank you guys for all support. We are at 3.34 thousand subscribers now on YouTube. If you guys enjoy this free content, would really appreciate if you take a couple of seconds out of your day, hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that notification bell. Again, hitting the notification bell really helps me out to continue to grow this channel. If you're listening to this on Apple Podcasts, just the DK DFS show, would appreciate if you leave a 5-star rating there. But yeah, with that out of the way, let's jump into the video. So before we get into players and prices, again, I have a spreadsheet for you guys I made. What I want to do is I want to look back my laps here from the weekend. Now, I only got one video up there for last weekend because the games went really, really late, it was like past midnight. I don't think the salaries came out to like 2 a.m. On Saturday, so I wasn't able to get a video out for Saturday's slate. And then Sunday, I said on Twitter I was going to take it off because it was only a 2-game slate. But I just want to go over my laps real quick and kind of talk about my thought process here. It was a really good weekend for me in Call of Duty overall. So this first game, this was the Friday slate. Those phase guys I mentioned, if Seattle can win 1 or 2 games, then these phase guys have enormous upside. They were super low owned, right? Because everyone's just looking at those Vegas odds. They saw how big phase were favorites and just completely avoided it. You had Simp at 27% owned, Celium at 14%. Played Hook and God RX too. Methods was a huge letdown for a lot of people. He was about 60% owned on Friday's slate, and I'm honestly really tilted because if you guys watched my Friday or my Call of Duty video last Friday, I mentioned playing those phase guys with Octane because if Seattle's going to keep it close, it's going to be because of Octane, and I just didn't do it. That was my original build, but Methods looked so good at that price that I don't know. I didn't pull the trigger. If I would have went Octane there, I would have won this tournament. So that's another one of those what ifs, but yeah, super tilting there because Octane just went off. But yeah, still a good day Friday. Saturday slate went right back to the phase wall again with Simp and Celium. Played Octane, who was like 10% owned on Friday, 86% owned on Saturday. So sure, again, you get a lot of the recency bias in Call of Duty. Like, what guy has a good game on Friday, he's going to be way higher owned on Saturday. Then I went back to God RX again for cheap. Shotzi's has been playing unbelievable. He's doing all the OBJ work too, staying in the hard point, getting those dom caps. Now, sure, it's not they're not huge points, but it definitely helps for someone who leads a team in kills too. So you gotta like Shotzi's. And then on Sunday slate, it was only a 2-game slate, but basically just wanted to jam. And their pricing was pretty light there. I was able to get Celium and Simp, Hook, Shotzi's, and Awakening. Awakening, the new guy for Florida, looks really good. Him and Skies are right now the top players. You could argue Awakening is the best player on the team. And we've seen that. It's kind of been a trend here with new players coming onto teams, right? So you had Mac Melts, right? He came on, a month or 2 ago, and now, he's the best player for New York. Awakening, first series with Florida. Dominated. They won the tournament. So we do have another new guy coming on, Kleenex. We'll talk about in a bit. Sure, those new guys are always, again, they're risky, but you're getting them at cheap prices, and the last few times it's worked out if you've taken a shot there. So that's really the look back of the weekend. Again, it was a really good weekend for me. Cash all 3 days. But now what we can do is we can switch over to my spreadsheet here. Again, I'm on the right-hand side of the screen because I didn't want to block anything for you guys here with this sheet. All right, let me go full screen here. Make sure this looks okay. Let's see. Okay, looks good to me. All right. So I arranged it so it's by matchup too. So the first game is Paris, Florida, then London, Dallas, New York, LA, and then Optic Atlanta and Toronto. So the first game here is Paris and Florida. Oh, one other thing I did want to mention is the slate is starting 3 hours earlier. So just be aware of that. Normally it's about 4. It starts, I think, 4 p.m. Eastern. It's starting 1 p.m. Eastern. So if you're making rosters, make sure to get them in before 1 p.m. Eastern. Also, if you guys are new to Call of Duty, right? How DFS works for it is there's a 5-game series, 5 maps. It goes in the rotation. It's Hardpoint, Search and Destroy, Domination, Hardpoint, and Search and Destroy. Hardpoint are the two are the games that players score the most in. So those are the most important games, followed by Domination, then Search and Destroy. Not a whole lot of points scored in that one. Also, on Draftkings, there is still not a map not played bonus. They did add that for FanDuel, I saw, but not Draftkings. So, the thing you got to keep in the back of your mind always is, man, does this team have a good chance to win 3-0? If that's the case, you're probably going to want to avoid players in that game because, if they win 3-0 and another game goes 5 maps, obviously those guys in the game that goes 5 maps are going to score better than the team or the game that only goes 3. So you always got to keep that in the back of your mind, but it's definitely going to lower ownership, right? So we see a couple of big favorites already, right? So Florida minus 500 favorites. We have Atlanta minus 800 favorites. Again, this is kind of like the same thing last weekend with Atlanta. They were huge favorites. Seattle almost won, but you saw some huge scores in that game, right? The Simp, Celium, and then Octane. So you always got to keep that in the back of your mind. It's definitely going to lower ownership. I think, the teams that are big favorites, people are definitely, I think, catching on to Call of Duty and going to target the games they think will stay close, which will probably be those middle games. But not saying those games on the, the top and the bottom are out of play. It's just, again, those guys are going to be a lot lower owned. If the underdogs can somehow win a map or even 2, then some of the main guys on like Florida and Atlanta could put up huge games. So what we have here, again, I included salary, the Vegas odds, their team's record, their overall KD, overall kills, and overall deaths. The reason I include overall kills is there's a couple of players that have a pretty good KD, but don't do a whole lot killing department, right? More OBJ players. So again, I always bring it up, but a guy like Major Maniac, right? So look at him, his overall kills compared to everyone else's team. He has 1,300 compared to everyone else is basically like 1,600 to 1,700. So yeah, sure, he has a good KD, but you really want the guys that are gonna kill a lot, right? Because you get 2 points for a kill, 1 point for a death. So that's why I included those stats. Average hill time, that's the hard point. You get 0.1 points for every second in the hill. On average, players get about 5 or 6 points. Again, not a huge deal. Caps per dom, again, it's 1 point per cap. Not a huge deal there either, about five or so. And then I did include the recent KD from their most recent tournament. So just to see how players have been playing, recently. So let's start with the breakdown here. Again, the first game is Paris and Florida. Paris are pretty big dogs, the second biggest dogs in the slate at plus 330. Their record's 6-10, so yeah, they're not a great team, right? Whereas Florida just picked up Awakening, and they came on strong, won the last tournament. They looked really good. But let's start with the Paris side here. So if you look at the players on Paris, I think there's really one guy for me. It's probably Dens. Now, you can make an argument for Luka, right? Luka had a pretty good tournament that last time, a 1.21 KD. But, looking at comparing overall kills, they're all about the same. And you just have Dens that it stands out compared to everyone else, right? He's at a relatively cheap price, 7.4K. I think is in play. Luka at 9K is just, again, I know he's been playing well recently, but that feels a little bit expensive. Now, if you wanted to go game stack in this game, which I think will be very low owned because of just the odds alone, then sure, I could see pairing Dens with Luka and then maybe running it back with 1 or 2 guys in Florida, if that's the GPP stack that you want to go with. Let's see. The other option, Zed, is a stay away from me. Shocks probably stay away too. Kismet, I don't really have interest. It's really the only 2 guys, Dens and Luka that I have interest in. I just prefer Dens for his price. Again, I know Luka played better the last tournament, but when you're getting about a $1,600 difference, I'm just going to give that edge to Dens there. So I think he's my favorite play there on the Paris side. On the Florida side, so again, Awakening looked really good. He was like 5 or 6K all weekend. Now he's 10K. Yeah, I mean, from what I saw, again, he looked really, really good. You could argue he's the best player. Again, him and Skies, I think, are the 2 top players in this team. He had a 1.12 KD. So, yeah, Awakening looked really good. I think the price point, though, is going to make him very low owned on the slate. Again, the Vegas odds, they're big favorites. He's, you could argue, slightly overpriced. So that's going to make him very low owned. But again, as a GPP contrarian play, I think he's viable because of how well he played. Let's see. The other guy that really stands out to me, I think, is going to be one of the more, well, I don't know. I don't know if he's going to be that popular because, again, the odds. But Skies at 7.6K stands out like a sore thumb to me. It really does. Like, that's about, I think, at least $1,500 too cheap. As long as this game goes more than 3 maps, I think Skies will destroy that salary from how he's been playing recently. If you look at his overall KD, a 1.24 KD. He had a 1.32 that most recent tournament. So Skies is in great form. Again, he'll use the AR, which is always good. You know, usually players that they use the AR tend to have a pretty good KD. Yeah, I mean, he's got the most overall kills on his team at 1649 compared to Frosty and Havoc. Pharaoh's a newer addition, and obviously, again, Awakening, very new addition. But yeah, I really like Skies there for his price. Frosty, Havoc, probably stay away from me at their respective prices. I think you could make an argument for Pharaoh at 6.8K. He's been a little bit more up and down, but still, he's got a 1.08 KD overall, and he was decent, right? 1.01 that most recent tournament. He's a pretty cheap price point, right? 6.8K. Now, sure, again, I definitely prefer Skies, but I think Pharaoh is still viable. So I think I would rank these plays for their prices. It would be Skies 1, probably Pharaoh 2, and Awakening 3. Doesn't make Awakening on a play, right? He played really, really well. I just think, the odds, the price point will make him super low on, probably sub 10% owned. Now let's talk about London and Dallas. So this is a game I think will be a little bit more popular, right? It's projected to stay somewhat close if you're just focusing on the odds, right? So Dallas minus 220 favorites, London plus 165 dogs. Yeah, I mean, I can see why Dallas are favorites, right? They're 15-8 compared to London, 8-9. Let's talk about the London side first. So we have Dylan at 8K, Scraps at 7.8, Wuskin at 6.4. Another price that stands out to me. Zero at 8.8, and then Shawnee at 6.4K. If you look at Wuskin's overall KD, again, it sticks out like a sore thumb compared to everyone else on his team, 1.22. Everyone else besides Scraps is slightly positive. Everyone else is a negative KD. Now, the most recent tournament, again, he wasn't great, only a 1.03 kill death ratio. And the thing with him is he's not going to be, again, he uses the AR, so he's not going to be killing a lot. Again, he'll have a good KD, but he's not going to be like the player with the most kills. But, the price point, he was, like a few COD sites ago, he was like 9, 10K. He was one of the most expensive players. Now he's 6.4K. So yeah, the matchup, obviously not the best, but I think that price point really stands out to me. The other guy that I have some slight interest in is Dylan. He's a sub player that really came onto the scene last year. It's been a little bit disappointing this year, but recent plays have been a little bit better. A 1.01 kill death ratio his last tournament. 8K, again, I think he just goes under the radar, but he would be the other guy I think I would consider on this team if you're going to make me choose. So yeah, now let's move on to Dallas here. If you look at their prices here, we have Clayster at 7.2, Crimzex at 6K, Hook at 8.4, Illy at 7K, Shotzi's at 10.2K. Yeah, I mean, Shotzi's doesn't have the best overall KD, but that's because early on he wasn't playing his best. Now, like recent tournaments, he has been arguably the best player in Call of Duty right now. He's doing all the objective work too. He's like usually the player with the most hardpoint time. He's usually the guy getting a lot of the caps and domination. His most recent tournament, again, he had 1.23 kill death ratio. Again, he has been really putting up big numbers for these Call of Duty slates. So, yeah, sure, the price point seems like a lot, but I still like Shotzi's a lot. I think he'll be one of the more popular spend ups for sure. I think he's a pretty safe spend up because he does a lot of everything. So I do really like Shotzi's. I wouldn't worry too much about that overall KD because of recent play, he has been on fire. Now, other guys I've mentioned, Hook at 8.4K, I think looks pretty decent. Again, he had a 1.15 KD that last tournament. He is, I think, the guy with the next most upside in this team. He's a very aggressive player. He's a sub. He's going to be in a lot of those gunfights. He's a guy that he has the most kills on his team, right, at 1,772. So I do like Hook at 8.4. If you're only going to play one Dallas guy and you can't get to Shotzi's, I could see going down to Hook. I think you can play both, right? So those are the two guys I have the most interest in. I think Illy is interesting. He looked pretty good that last tournament, especially. He's an S&D star. He's very, very good in Search and Destroy. If he can have decent games and respawn, I can see him paying off at 7K price point. Crimzex and Clay, the veterans, not super excited about it. I mean, if you're going more stars and scrubs, I could see taking a shot at Crimzex at 6K. I think that is still a little bit too cheap. Not a guy that's going to put up a huge score, but I could see going to him because of the price point. Next, let's talk about New York. So we have accuracy at 6.6, attached 7.4, temp at 7K, Zuma at 7K, Mac at 9.4K. I think the guy that stands out here, obviously, is Mac. I really like that price on him. He's been very, very good since coming onto this team. He's definitely, in my opinion, the best player on this team. His most recent tournament had a 1.19 KD. So I do like Mac a good amount here. Again, they're going up against Optic Gaming. They're minus 160 favorites. This is the one projected to say the closest if you're just looking at the odds. So I think Mac will be a guy that will be pretty popular. I think he's probably a cash game play if you're looking for cash games. But I do really like him at that price point. Another guy that, kind of like a Shazi's Ray, has been playing really well of late. The other guys on New York, it's a little bit harder to decipher. They're a pretty balanced team besides Mac. Again, I think Mac does kind of carry the load. Everyone else, if you just look at their KDs, right, you have accuracy 1.01, attach 1.07, temp 1.01, Zuma 0.98. I think the next guys I would have interested in would either be attach or temp, right? You have attach at 7.4, temp at 7K. Both have been a little bit up and down, but both still, I think, are pretty good Call of Duty players in this league. And if you're going to go play someone else besides Mac, I could see you getting to one of those guys in the mid-range. Again, I think you can still make an argument for Zuma or accuracy, but I think if I was going to, again, you're going to make me choose another guy, it would be either attach or temp. Next, we have Optic Gaming, another team I think will be pretty popular, again, because players are just going to look at the odds and they're going to target the games that are projected to stay close. So again, this game I think will be pretty popular. Slasher at 9.6K. I know the price is up, but I love him at that price point. He has been playing great Call of Duty of late. This Optic Gaming team, I know they don't have the best record, right? 7-11, but I still think they can be one of the top teams, if not the top team in Call of Duty. The talent level on this team is just insane. Besides Chino, really, not a guy that's going to do a whole lot, but TJ, Slasher, Kenny, and Dashy, there is a lot of talent on this team. So I do like this Optic Gaming team a good amount. Slasher, I know the price is up there on him, but I love him. He had a 1.34 KD that most recent tournament. He's sporting a 1.15 KD overall. Really like Slasher at that price point. I also have some interest in Dashy. Now, he was a disappointment. He was a guy that, was always seems to be pretty popular on these Call of Duty slates. His prices dropped. Again, he was disappointing, right? A 0.91 KD is not what you expect from Dashy, who's got a 1.04 KD overall. He is a very aggressive player, right? If you look at his kills compared to everyone else, he has 1448. Slasher's up there too, but you can tell those are the two guys that kill the most, that slay the most. So those are the two guys I have interest in. Definitely it would be Slasher for me one, but I think you can look to Dashy too if you want to go that route and play two guys here in Optic Gaming. Now Kenny or Quavo, as they have him on Draftkings, at 7.6K, TJ Haley at 6.6K. I think those are more dart throws for GPPs. Again, I think they're both underperforming this year and still are top Call of Duty players. So I could see taking a shot in one of those guys. They're going to be super low on because everyone's going to look at their numbers. They're not great, but again, I still think the talent is there for both those guys. Again, Kenny, last year, World War II, he was the best submachine gun player in Call of Duty. So yeah, I could see taking a shot in one of those guys, but that's more, again, a kind of a dart throw play for GPPs. Final game here, we have Atlanta and Toronto. So this is a game for cash games and even for GPPs. It's going to go low owned. People are just going to look at those odds, right? Minus 800 phase, and they're going to avoid it, right? Because there's a decent chance they win 3-0. But, FaZe has struggled. They almost lost to LA. A lot of teams took them to 5 maps. But they've shown, if a team takes FaZe to 5 maps, you see Simp and Celium put up enormous scores. So you have Celium at 9.2, Simp at 9.8K. Their prices are up, right? Last Friday, they were in the mid 8K range. That didn't really make sense. Now 9.2 and 9.8, they're definitely going to be contrarian options because they're just going to go low on. People are going to be scared of the possible 3-0. I still like both for GPPs a lot because, again, they're just going to be low-owned guys. Those are the two that really carry the roster kills-wise. Celium, 1.17 KD, Simp, a 1.18. If you look at their KDs, it obviously wasn't great because they're a little bit more up and down in that tournament, but I do really like those two. And again, Simp, Celium do just kill. They seem to kill everything on the map. Simp has 1,700 kills compared to some of his teammates in the 1,300, 1,500 range. Celium right behind him there at 1,678. I do really like those guys. Again, I think they're GPP plays. I don't think you go there for cash, but I really like those guys for GPPs. Now, Major Maniac actually did look pretty good that last tournament. I know he's not a guy that does a whole lot in the killing department, but he had a pretty good weekend. So, am I going to consider him though? I don't know. Like, I think if I was going to consider a third guy in phase, it would probably be a Beezy or Priesta. Now, Priesta really struggled, right? A .82 KD that last tournament. So, you could try to buy low on Priesta, right? The talent level is there. I don't think he's a .882 kill death guy for Call of Duty. He's definitely more around a 1.0, maybe a little bit above 1.0. So, yeah, I think you could make an argument for Priesta. Abizi is a very, very aggressive player. He seems to always be the one initiating gunfights, especially in Search and Destroy. He's just always pushing. So, yeah, I could see going to Abizi too. But really, again, the two guys I look to the most here are Simp and Celium. And I like them for GPPs because they're going to be low owned. Last team here, we have Toronto. So we do have Kleenex now filling in for Classic. Again, we don't have any stats on him. I think you can make an argument for him at 6.4K. He's a guy that I did watch a little bit in Warzone. He looks pretty good. Now, Warzone is just what's it called? Like the Fortnite of Call of Duty, basically, the Battle Royale. But Kleenex looks like a pretty talented guy from what I saw in a few videos. 6.4K. Again, it's a risky play for sure because we haven't seen him with this team. But look what's happened the last two times new additions have come on, right? You saw Mac. He's the best player in New York. Awakening. Could argue he's the best player in Florida. So you could see Kleenex come on and carry this team. Again, it's kind of like you don't really know, so it's a risky play, but 6.4K is really cheap. Let's see, the other guys I have interest in. Well, let's just go over the other players. Right? So we have Cammy at 6.6, Methods at 7.8, Metals at 6.8, Bance at 6K. This team's a little bit tough to kind of decipher. Methods had a terrible weekend, absolute terrible, 0.84 KD. Again, he was really chalky on Friday, let a bunch of people down. The whole weekend, he was just bad. His KD drop, but still is decent, right? 1.11 compared to everyone else on his team. So I still have interest in Methods. I think he's going to go a lot lower owned because of recency bias, and he's not been playing well. I think it's going to be people are just going to avoid him, and they're going up against FaZe. People are going to think this probably has a decent chance that it goes 3-0, but. Yeah, you could make an argument for a game stack, right? If Toronto can pull off one game in the series, you could see some pretty big games from like Simp, Celium, and maybe like a guy like Kleenex or Methods. I think you could also have some interest in Metals too at 6.8K. I think he looked the best their most recent tournament, even though they weren't good. He had a 1.01 KD. Yeah, this team in general is just a little bit hard to break down. The price tags all do look really good, right? And if you want to go that contrarian build and play Simp and Celium together and hope Toronto can win a game, then I could see running it back with like one of those cheap Toronto guys, whether it be Kleenex, Methods, Metals, right? All right, so now let's switch back to DraftKings here really quick before I get out of here. So give me 1 second. All right, we're back on DraftKings. Let me get to the tournament here. So you got to play someone in the team spot. Normally what I do is I always go for a team that I feel pretty confident winning. Now, it's probably going to be FaZe, right? I know they're the biggest favorites. So I think you probably just eat the chalk there with FaZe. I think you can make an argument for Florida, too, who have looked really good. But those are probably the two teams I would consider, unless you want to get super contrarian for GPPs. There's not a big gap in scoring for teams. Right? I think the top is like 28. The lowest in a win is 22. Obviously, if you lose, you don't get that much. I think you get like 9 or 10. So you really do want your team to win. It's a pretty big deal. But the difference because you get 0.5 points for every round won in S&D. So say you don't win any rounds in S&D, then I think it's 22, I want to say. And I think if you win like 2 S&Ds, and obviously that'd be 12 rounds, I think it's about 28. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's how it works. So yeah, there's not a huge difference there with a winning team and their scores, right? So wouldn't put too much weight into that. I think you just go with the team you feel most confident winning, probably FaZe or Florida, right? So let's just say we plug in FaZe. That's 9.4K remaining. Now, sure, you got to play someone in the captain spot. I think pricing is a little bit tougher on this slate, right? A lot of the Call of Duty slates recently, the prices have been so slack, you can almost get whoever else you want in. But you're definitely gonna have to play like one or two cheaper guys, right? So again, the guys that stand out as cheaper options for me, a guy like Skies, right? I think that he's, even though they're big favorites, I think that really stands out, and he's at what, 7.6K. Some other guys I have some interest in, right? I think Attach is viable. I think Temp is okay. Pharaoh looks decent for a 6.8K price, where he was over 10K this last weekend or the weekend before. Now he's 6.8K. Wuskin looks pretty good at a 6.4K price point. So even Kleenex, right? If you want to take a shot there, it's a risky shot, but it's worked out if you've gone to that last few times again with Mac, with Awakening. So those are some cheap options I'm looking at. As far as roster construction goes, right? So people always ask me, how do you build your lineups? Do you game stack? And it's always, my answer is it's dependent on the slate, right? So there's 4 games. Let's say all 4 games play all 5 maps. Then you can have a mix and match of every team, right? But if we have maybe 1 game or only 2 games that go 4 or 5 maps, well, the other go 3-0, right? So you're going to want the players in those 2 games that play the most maps, right? So play the 4 or 5 maps. So again, it's dependent, right? So if 3 teams win 3 or 3 games win 3-0, and then the other game goes 5 maps, you're going to want a game stack in that game that goes all 5 maps. So I really don't have a good answer for you guys. I think for cash games, probably the safest way to go is to get players in, if you're looking at those odds, the games that are projected to stay close. But again, for GPPs, right, those FaZe guys I really like. I think Skies on Florida looks pretty good. So that's really the breakdown there for this Call of Duty slate. Really excited for this one. Again, Call of Duty is a very fun game to watch for DFS. Just esports in general. It's really entertaining to watch. So if you guys haven't checked it out or haven't played, I would recommend, maybe make your lineup and watch some games. It's really entertaining. But I think that's going to do it for the video, guys. So if you have been enjoying the content so far, I really appreciate it. If you like this video, subscribe if you haven't already, and hit that notification bell. Again, hitting the notification bell does really help me out to continue to grow this channel. I'm going to have a video up for CSGO slate right after the Furia versus Liquid game ends. So be on the lookout for that. We have another 3-game slate. I think we have a $15,000 to first tournament, so a pretty good sized tournament for CSGO. So excited. We got a nice weekend of esports for sure, and then we have golf as well. So thanks again for everyone to come and check the video. Hope you guys have a good day, and I will see you all in the next one.